Preparing to stream. All right, we are officially live. So hi, everybody. My name is Rachel. I'm so excited to be here. I am the moderator for this group, Nurses Who Write. We have a lot of new members here. So I'm just going to briefly introduce myself, and then I'm going to introduce my guest. This is Rachel Rotramel. Did I say your last name right?
Rotramel.
Rotramel. Rachel Rotramel. And so it's Rachel interviewing Rachel. So a little bit about me. So I run this group. I love writing. I am a registered nurse. I am a mom. I'm also a creativity coach, and I teach people how to use writing to heal and to move through things. I live in Los Angeles. I always like to mention where I live. And this is Rachel. And so Rachel, if you don't mind, before we dive in, I have a bunch of questions for you. But before we dive in, if you could just introduce yourself to the group, tell everybody where you live and just a little bit about you.
Sure. Well, power of the Rachels, right? So I live in central Illinois in a town called Decatur, and I have 4 children. They're 5, 4, 3 this Friday, and 16 months. And I am also a registered nurse. I currently work per diem at a hospital, and I also am a clinical instructor, and I also am a nurse coach, and I like to write. So I dabble in a lot of different things, and I really enjoy having all those itches scratched. So
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah. You're a busy lady. You're somebody who, whenever I ask you what you're up to, I'm always just like amazed by how you juggle it all. You guys heard correctly. She has 4 kids under the age of 5. How old's your oldest?
5, yeah.
5. Yeah. Yeah. And she's doing all these other things. She's working, she's building a business, she writes. So yeah, just a finger in a lot of pies, which is maybe why we are energetically attracted to each other. So I'm going to ask you a little bit about your writing process. There's a lot of different types of writing. So I just want to kind of preface it with that. There's so many different types of writing. There's like more academic writing, there's articles, there's personal narrative, and there's so many different things that nurses can get into. And you recently published a few articles. One of them I read in the American Holistic Nurses Association magazine. It was amazing. It was excellent. It was about burnout. And yeah, there's just so many different ways we could utilize our writing. So I'm going to talk about the other type of writing, like the more narrative type of writing soon, but I want to kind of hear from you. What was that process like of getting published in the AHNA? Like, how did that unfold? How did the idea come to you? And just what did that look like?
Sure. Well, I originally got some work published when I had just graduated from my master's for nurse leadership. And I had a professor who said, you do all of this work, you might as well get published. So that was kind of my first step in like academic writing, and just getting into a professional academic journal. And so that whole process was just so much more formalized than, let's say, like the American Holistic Nurses Association. So basically with that, I was going through the Nurse Coach Collective, and that's just the whole transformative process of, the self-care and everything. And part of my self-care was I really wanted to write more, and my yearning to write more turned into this article about burnout. And I looked on the website, and I was always getting the Beginnings magazine, and I see like the call for articles, and there's like a section on their website that you email the editor and just say, hey, this is my idea for my article. And they have specific submission guidelines, and you just send it that way, and they say yay or nay to it. They do a little bit of editing if they feel like they need to, like they changed my title.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was a fairly painless process for the Holistic Nurses Association. versus doing like the academic journal where it's peer reviewed and it's much more of a back and forth. Um, and that I was really proud of doing the beginnings magazine just because it was such a from a personal space versus just purely researched academic writing. And I wanted to share a little bit of my story in, you know, as many words as you could fit in an article. And I felt like that was just a really meaningful experience for me to even just share it. And that kind of propelled me forward to begin to share a little bit more of my life, even on just on social media and sharing on social media posts. And that's a totally different kind of writing as well. It's very like blog style, short, but sweet, concise, trying to get people in.
Yeah.
And then I just started reaching out to other places that I would be interested in writing for. And some of it is still professional, like in the nursing world. I love cardiac medicine. So, well, cardiac nursing, I should say, not necessarily medicine. And I am a part of the Preventative Cardiovascular Nurses Association.
Cool.
Yeah. So I reached out to their like content manager. I was like, hey, do you want some content for your website, for your blog essentially? And I've written about these things, and I'm also interested in writing about coaching and burnout and things like that, that all these new things that are coming up for me. And they're like, that sounds really awesome. Can you write about X, Y, and Z? So I think there's in the nursing world, it seems like, I don't know, like the synchronicity that we all talk about, that everybody wants to learn a little bit more about what they don't know. They heard about a little bit of it and you're like, oh, yeah, that sounds good. So it's all about just sending kind of they call it a letter of or a query letter. It's kind of like selling what you would write about without necessarily have already written it.
Interesting. Yeah.
So it's
So,
a
okay.
interesting process.
I love hearing about the process. I love the nitty gritty. And I'm one thing that popped out at me is hearing you talk. It sounds like you're a very multi-passionate person. That's something I know about you. And it seems to express itself in your writing because you do write a lot of different, you have a lot of different narrative styles. So you've obviously written academically for your degree, and then you wrote for the Beginnings magazine, which is not an academic magazine. It's more like a journal for nurses that you would like read on a Sunday afternoon. And then you've written blog articles, you've written Facebook posts, and then I've heard you in our workshop do a lot of like personal narrative and really personal stuff. So it's really cool to me to just see like all the different types of writing that you do. And it's really cool that one person can almost have like different voices. And so I'm getting to the question. The question is, do you feel like when you do different types of writing, you like change your persona or put on a different hat, or like you know what I mean? You're like, now I'm writing academically, or now I'm writing for a Facebook post. Do you like embody like a different Rachel for each of those types of writing?
Hmm. I don't know if I necessarily take on like a new persona, more so than just taking a different part of my brain, I suppose. So there's like the more expressive personal side where like you write like poetry um, or like the narratives or the personal blog posts and things like that, where I still have a certain order in my brain of how I want to express my message. And that either gets filled out like in a structured form in like a what I call like formalic writing, where you know your topic and then you outline and then you flesh out that outline. And that's more of like the professional writing, where I feel like some of the other more expressive writing is maybe there is like a sense, like a split personality of like that academic thing and then more of this free flowing expressive person. And but I'm starting to intermesh them, but I think there definitely probably is like a different side.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah. You're probably
Totally.
right on that.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I think it's interesting because you don't have to stick to one voice, you don't have to stick to one type of writing, but the idea is that you're writing. Like you're obviously sitting down and writing, and that has morphed and that's changed and that's evolved, and it sounds like you're starting to like maybe gravitate more towards that narrative style of writing. So it's just something that people should know, that like writing is a journey. It's not like you have to like sit down and know who you are and know what type of writing you want to do. It's something that just, it's a practice, and it changes and it evolves and it morphs. And so just really cool to see that side of you. Um, yeah. So another question, you did a really awesome, one of my favorite Facebook posts that you ever did was like a super vulnerable post about your time as a teenager. Do you want to tell us more about that?
Sure. I, as a teen, I struggled with my mental health, and I had gone in and out of hospitalizations, and I felt, looking back on it, that I was overtreated for something that I probably could have used a different kind of support. So through that process of getting diagnosis that may or may have not been right, being on medications, at a young age, and trying to tackle all of these life situations, and then being heavily medicated for those things. And then that whole process of becoming off of the medications and then relearning how to live life and learn how to embody all the emotions after feeling none. So I wanted to give a little personal piece just to see if it resonated with anybody. And it it's like, that's just like the tip. Like that was just like the safest part that I felt expressing. And that was still like a lot for me. But I don't think I could have really been there without some of this other unpacking, of the slow process of being okay with being so vulnerable, I suppose, and just kind of being like, if it
Yeah.
helps people, it helps people. If it doesn't, then like it's helpful for me to tell it.
Yeah.
And I know eventually there will be more that will come out and come out. And I know when I think more of the personal narrative, like when we write in like third person, so much more comes out, and I can tell like this huge long story and people not knowing that it was me, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Um, so I love that technique for sure. Um, but it's different when you put a face on it. I posted a picture of like 16-year-old me, you know, and I, I don't think people realize that that's where I came from.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a super vulnerable share. And I mean, for me, like it moved me so deeply because I could tell how vulnerable it was. And I'm curious how you felt afterwards, because I'm sure it was really, really difficult to post that. And I've posted things like that. And like, I know how I feel in my body. I perseverate, I sweat, I'm thinking about it. But how did you feel after? Like, was there relief? Did you feel like there was a release? Like, what did it feel like once you had kind of posted it and put your story out into the world?
I think there was this sense of, you've already like accepted it already, just typing it out and pressing post, and you're like, it's there, it's out there. And then there's some parts of you that are like anxiously checking to see what people are saying about it. So I actually took a break and put my phone away for a while, so that I wasn't constantly thinking about what others thought of my post, and how other people would respond. And it was fortunate enough for me that I actually didn't have like all this negativity things that people were going, that this narrative in my head, thinking that people are going to think something different of me now for sharing something from, 20 something
Yeah.
years ago. um, because they didn't. It almost strengthened my relationships with some, like, once strangers or acquaintances. They're like, wow, I had no
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah. And I find that's something that happens is when you are authentic, you could push people away. And I haven't seen that happen that much in my own life, but it could happen, and it does happen. But what happens that's even more powerful is you're drawing in the people that are aligned with you. And I have seen that time and time and time again. And it explains synchronicity, because it's like, oh my God, how did I ask this all the time. How do I keep attracting these people who are just like so aligned with me and we have so much in common and we just click? And it's like, because I put myself out there, because people see my true soul and they're attracted to that. And so you end up calling in the people that are aligned with you. And like, it's the gift we didn't even think of when we put ourselves out there. Like, it's like not even something that I think about, but now that I'm talking with you and we're going through this, I'm like, oh yeah, that's what happens when you put out your story and you're authentic. You end up calling in people who are aligned with you, and it's super powerful. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
I can't agree more. Like, I just
Yeah.
started this whole journey. Like, I took a year off Facebook, and then I just started like slowly coming back on and like sharing a little bit more and more and more. And the more that you are authentic and true, the more that attracts people. People recognize real, right?
Yes.
They're not attracted to just, that's why Chat GPT isn't going to win.
I
It,
hope you're
you
right.
know,
Yeah. Oh my God. So true. Awesome. All right. Well, we have a few more minutes. I wanted to ask kind of one last question. So you are in my writing workshop, Heal the Right Way. And I'm curious if you have any thoughts, like what has been your biggest takeaway so far from the workshop?
I think you the more you practice just speaking, writing out your mind, I should say. I say speaking your mind, but writing it out. The more you recognize your own thought patterns, and the easier it is for you to articulate what you're actually wanting to say. Because I think that's really frustrating for people when I just can't find the perfect way of saying this. And it's like, it's just fine the way that you're doing it. That's
Yes.
just how it is in that moment that's coming up for you. And that's okay. You know, just the whole, it's okay. I'm enough. The affirmation part of it, I think, and the community
Yeah.
really, I think, is a great takeaway, that we're all really feeling it together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing in the workshop. I still can't get over it, how people like move and sync. Like people come to the call and like we're all experiencing the same thing. And it's again, because we just kind of move in community and we're all spending so much time accessing our emotions and accessing our inner landscape through writing. And so much comes out of that. And exactly what you're saying about the articulating, that is one of the biggest things I have gained from doing daily journaling, from sitting down every day and journaling, is like, I can articulate myself better in relationships. I articulate myself better in the grocery store, better difficult conversations, in writing, in expressing myself. Like it ends up carrying over into so many different domains. And it's just really, it's really awesome. So, all right. Well, thank you so much for coming on with me. Do you mind just telling people right before we hop off, what is the best way for people to reach you? And do you have any offers that you want to let the community know about?
Oh, sure. I basically do Facebook. So if you message me or add me on Facebook, I'll say hi. Otherwise, you can email me. I'm at coach@rachelrotramel.com. And right now I am working with preteens and teens on their emotional health. I feel like this is my calling. This is what all that pain and suffering I went through, this is what it's for, to help others do that. So I'm really excited about that. And I'm right now just doing, one-on-one clients for that. And yeah, more to be continued. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, awesome. You always have stuff going on. So, all right. Well, thanks so much for coming on with me today, Rachel. Thanks for everyone who watched. This was a really, really insightful, valuable conversation for me. I learned so much. And yeah, thank you everyone for watching, and I will catch you in the next video. If I could just figure out how to turn off the streaming.